It's my pleasure to call to order the City Council meeting on March the 2nd, 2016, and ask the City Clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Hall.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Maxwell. Here. Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
Mayor, I'd like to announce a staff memorandum has been received from the City Attorney requesting closed session item 4A be removed from the agenda.
In order to comply with the Brown Act, we will now receive public statements. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. If you are here to speak on hearing items 3A, this is not the time for you to speak. Madam Clerk, do we have any public statements?
We have no public statements.
Next item, please.
Item 3, hearings.
Before I open the public hearing, I wish to state the presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It is 15 minutes for all speakers. Therefore, it is important that you identify yourself and make your statement quickly so that others may speak. We will hear statements from those opposed to the staff recommendation. Then we will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. If there is testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal period. You will notice a clock on the wall behind me which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone and identify yourself. At 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on, and at the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating that your time is up and to quickly end your statement. You may pose questions during your statement, but they will not be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, provide it to the City Clerk, and she will then provide the copies to the City Council. Madam Clerk, please read the public hearing item.
Item A, public hearing to determine whether the city should elect to become a groundwater GSA for a portion of the Kern County subbasin. Staff recommends opening the public hearing, accepting comments, closing the public hearing, accept council comments, and return to City Council on March 30, 2016 for adoption of the resolution and approval of the memorandum of understanding.
Ms. Gennaro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, council members. Just a brief introduction. The purpose of this public hearing is to bring the city yet another step closer to being in compliance with state legislation that went into effect the latter part of 2014. That legislation is known as SGMA, that's S-G-M-A, or the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And your city staff, including the city manager's office, the water department, and the computer or information technology department, has spent some considerable time the last almost over a year in analyzing this legislation and in crafting a strategy on how to comply. And in doing so, we retain the services of Horizon Water and Environment to keep us on task, and in particular to make sure that we met the deadline of June 2017 in which to form a GSA, or a Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Ken Schwartz is here tonight. He is in the front row, and he is the main principal of Horizon Water and Environment. He is here to give you a presentation on SGMA, to go into a little bit of greater detail in terms of what I have just presented, and also to explain the staff's recommendation that the City Clerk read to you. Again, we are hoping that after the presentation by Mr. Schwartz, that the Mayor opens the hearing, that we take some comments, if appropriate, close the hearing. Again, if you have any questions of staff, we are all here tonight to answer those questions. And as the clerk indicated, our recommendation is that you not take any action tonight, but rather that you continue that to March 30th. And at that time, we were going to be asking that you approve a resolution which would allow the city to form a GSA called the Kern River GSA. And we will be asking that you approve an MOU, which will be an MOU for that GSA between the city and Kern Delta and perhaps others. We need that additional time because there are some timing issues, and we may need to require some additional signatures from some additional agencies. We are also reaching out to the agency as well as Improvement District Number 4 to see what their interest may be in this MOU. Before I turn it over to Ken, I would like to again, give a great thanks to Kern Delta. Some of their representatives, I think, are here tonight. I don't see Gene McMurtry in the audience, but he is the attorney for Kern Delta. I do see Mark Mulcahy and Rodney Paula. It has been wonderful working with this group. It has truly been a collaborative effort. It's really some exciting times, and I think, as Ken is going to point out to you now, this is a game changer. And for those of you that are going to be with us for the next couple of years, again, we have some exciting things, I think, to share with you, and some new allies to bring to the table. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Ms. Gennaro, for that nice introduction. Esteemed council members, my name is Ken Schwartz, as Ms. Gennaro introduced me. We're here today to discuss and present information about groundwater, and more specifically, the Groundwater Sustainability Management Act and steps the city is taking to form a groundwater sustainability agency. You'll hear some terms today: GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency; GSP, Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So we'll kind of walk through those things, but those are acronyms that you'll be hearing a few times today. To begin, just setting the stage here, we have a photo here of the Kern River, and of course today we're here to talk about groundwater, but in Bakersfield and in Kern County, groundwater and surface water are interconnected, so it's important to keep that in mind. And of course, we're looking at a picture here from a few years back. I think this was the spring of 2011, really the last great flow year on the Kern River, when there was more abundant water in the river. And of course, since that time, we know it's been a very dry period. And that's something to keep in mind as well, is that in this region, we have wet years and we have dry years. And part of these management plans are to balance those ranges in natural conditions. So, over the next, say, 15, 20 minutes or so, we'll be walking through a few things. We'll present an overview on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act itself, a little bit of the background, Kern County, the basin, some of the setting that we operate in, and then talk about some of the specifics of the Act itself, the timeline, and the requirements that we're working on. We'll look at the GSA formation process, what is required from the state, and then I'll show you some working maps of the actual boundaries that we're working on currently, and then talk about next steps and where do we go from here. So, as Ms. Gennaro mentioned, what we're talking about, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA or SGMA, sometimes it's abbreviated. These were actually 3 bills, 2 Senate bills, 1 State Assembly bill in the fall, September of 2014 that were passed. The governor quickly signed it, became law January 1st, 2015. And these 3 bills together actually formed what's the Management Act itself, kind of the law, as a package of those 3 bills. As Ms. Gennaro said, this really was a game changer. In some ways, many commentators have looked at this and said, this is revolutionary. This is the biggest thing in California water in the last 100 years, since perhaps the 1914 changes in how appropriative water rights were to be filed with the state. It's that big, it's that significant. So what does it do? At its core, what SGMA does is it focuses the management of California groundwater at the local level through local basins, local agencies, and setting local plans. So SGMA requires the formation of these locally controlled groundwater sustainable agencies, the GSAs, in the state's medium and high priority groundwater basins. We're going to look at a map in just a moment. Once a GSA is formed, they then have the responsibility to develop and implement the sustainability plan. So what's a sustainability plan? We hear a lot these days about sustainable. What does that mean? Actually, the law does define what they mean by sustainable. But the goal here is to create a sustainable yield or limit for the basin to ensure that the basin is operated within the sustainable yield without causing undesirable results. We'll look at what those could be in just a moment. So the law focuses on sustainable yield, and this is a paraphrase of the definition that the state provides for the law. What do we mean by that? It's the maximum quantity of water that can be withdrawn annually from a groundwater supply without causing an undesirable result. Sustainable yield is calculated over a base period that is representative of long-term conditions in the basin. Basically, this is, if you think of it like a home checking account, this is kind of living within your means in terms of groundwater, that you're going to figure out what the long-term condition is, and you're going to operate in a sustainable manner without causing these undesirable results. So next question, what's an undesirable result? And here are the 6 that are mentioned in brief in the new law. These are things that will probably be, more detail will be provided from Department of Water Resources in time, but as of now, this is what's specifically mentioned by an undesirable result. Meaning, if you were to manage or withdraw groundwater to an extent that you cause chronic lowering of groundwater levels or depletion of the supply, that would be an undesirable result, number 1. Reduction in groundwater storage, meaning the capacity to store groundwater in your basin, that would be undesirable. Significant and unreasonable seawater intrusion. Well, we don't have to worry about that in Bakersfield, but other areas of the state do, areas like Monterey County and places along the coast. Number 4, significant and unreasonable degradation in water quality, including the migration of contaminant plumes that impair water supplies. So perhaps you're doing something in groundwater that creates the mobilization of poor groundwater quality into an area that previously had been good groundwater quality. That would be an undesirable result. You'll notice the state uses the language about significant and unreasonable. That's not defined yet, and that's probably something that's a little bit open right now. And that's something that the local agency will determine for its area. The 5th one is land subsidence. We've heard a lot about that in the last few years with the drought. And the 6th one is the connection between groundwater and surface water, that you wouldn't want to be doing anything that's affecting groundwater that would then, in a connection to surface water, affect surface water supplies. So let's talk a little bit about our setting and where we're located here. The Kern County subbasin, and let's see here. It's located right in here. It's kind of a tan-brown color here, and that's legend here tells you that that is a high priority groundwater basin that's designated in Bulletin 118 from Department of Water Resources, and here's a close-up map of it showing a little greater detail. The Kern County area shown here is actually a sub-basin within the San Joaquin Valley Basin. Okay, so it's a sub-basin area. What's important to note right now is we're a high-priority basin, as is much of the southern San Joaquin area. That's important. It has implications for how the law is to be complied with. The other thing to take note right now is that the Kern County sub-basin, and it's shown here, Basin 52214, is critically overdrafted. Again, that's a designation by the Department of Water Resources. This also has implications for how SGMA is implemented. So, on the timeline, the SGMA requires that GSAs, actually, to be more correct than what's shown on the slide, the GSAs in medium and high priority basins are formed by June 30th, 2017. Being in a high priority basin, that's our timeline, that's our deadline. SGMA requires that GSPs for critically overdrafted basins, in which we're in, are developed by January 31st, 2020. So we're here in March 2016, it's roughly 4 years. Okay. Final point on the timeline here, state intervention through the State Water Resources Control Board may or will occur at the local level if local agencies don't achieve the timeline or comply with SGMA requirements. When I introduced this presentation, I said really the heart of SGMA is about local agencies creating local plans for the management of groundwater. Well, the state is still participating here, very much so, and that occurs through 2 agencies. On one hand, there's the Department of Water Resources. They're the agency that's framing SGMA. They're framing up the regulations, they're developing the timeline, they're making use of past data, whether it's through Bulletin 118, to kind of identify which basins have to comply with this and which timeline. So that's kind of on the procedural side and also their data. And when we go to develop the GSA, we'll be submitting information to the Department of Water Resources. So that's on one hand. The other hand is the State Water Resources Control Board. They're not so involved yet in the active day-to-day. However, what they do say is when local agencies don't comply with these timelines or don't comply with the requirements of SGMA, then they will get involved. And so they're going to be more of the enforcement side, and that's important to keep in mind. This law is really far-reaching. It talks about developing plans for up to 2040. So it's around for a while, as Ms. Gennaro said. Okay, the GSA formation process now, a little bit more in specific, what is it that the city is doing? To form the GSA, you need to provide these notification materials to the Department of Water Resources, including formation notice. You need to provide the map. Very important this early stage. Where is the GSA? So there's GIS component that city staff have been working on. We need to provide a copy of the resolution or the legal agreement that's forming this new agency. Any bylaws, ordinances, anything like that, we'll be submitting that information to Department of Water Resources. And the final bullet there is information regarding interested parties who may be affected by the GSA or the GSP, the actual sustainability plan. These are all things that city staff have been working on over the last several months. A key component of the GSA discussion right now, and I may add that I mentioned there were three bills that formed SGMA. There was actually a fourth bill, a clarifying bill, that came out in September 2015, Senate Bill 13, and provided more clarification on the earlier law that was passed earlier. And a very key element of this was this description of overlapping areas between GSAs. So imagine, if you will, that you have a GSA kind of forming in one area. And a GSA, by the way, needs to be led by a public agency. A private entity can't go ahead and form a GSA. They can participate within a GSA, and there's roles for that, but they can't form a GSA or kind of be in the lead. But you might have various jurisdictions that may have overlapping geographies, a city, a county, a water district. And so what the state requires is that in the area that the GSA is forming, that there's no overlap with other GSAs. In other words, there cannot be multiple GSAs covering the same jurisdiction. Why? Because when it comes time to define a plan, develop a plan, and implement a plan, they don't want multiple people saying what's going to happen there. There needs to be one GSA discretely. Okay? I think that's pretty clear. You'd think it's clear, but when you go, actually, let me show you what's going on here. This is fresh. This is the Department of Water Resources website right now as we look. And this is the table of GSA formation notifications. These are the ones that have actually been submitted to Department of Water Resources. So you'll see here there was one that was posted yesterday. They actually submitted it a couple weeks ago. It takes Department of Water Resources a couple weeks to get it up on their website once they deem the notification complete. But look at the status. You see that? It says overlap. That means there's overlapping geography. That means someone else has submitted a GSA that shares some portion. When you get to the status of overlap, the process stops. Department of Water Resources says, you guys got to sort that out. We don't want overlap in our basins. You got to sort it out locally, figure it out, come back to us when you've got it sorted out. In the meantime, the deadline for the GSP, remember that was January 2020, that deadline keeps going. That timeline keeps going. So if people are in the condition of overlap, the clock is running, and it's not a good situation. If you look here on this first page, these are the ones that have been recently submitted in the last couple of weeks. You'll see there's a lot of overlap. And if you keep going on, you'll see there's more overlap. More overlap. Here's good. We get down here. This basin was posted on November 24th, Desert Water Agency, Indio Basin, exclusive. That designation means that they've submitted their notification for their GSA. Department of Water Resources then published this. It was open period for 90 days. There's a 90-day window in which case other folks can submit a GSA in that same geography. If at the end of 90 days, no one else has submitted, there's no competing overlap, Department of Water Resources concludes or states that that GSA is exclusive. That's a good thing. That's what you want, because then when you go to develop your GSP or manage your groundwater, you are the exclusive agency to undertake those tasks. So that's the goal. Okay, so I want to provide you a little bit of specificity to also note here that this overlap condition is more in the majority than the minority right now. Of all the 144 basins or so that have been submitted, the majority of them have overlap, and we don't want to get in that situation. Let me go back to the presentation here. Okay, so where are we at today? We're working on our GSA boundaries right now. This is an informational hearing. And as Mr. Gennaro mentioned, we're working closely with the Kern Delta Water District in considering what the boundary of this Kern River GSA might be. And the maps up here are kind of showing two ends of a spectrum right now. The map on the right is a larger GSA area, more inclusive. The map on the left is a more limited GSA area. The map on the left, and we'll pull these up in detail in just a moment, if you look at it, the pinkish gray area, that's the city boundary. The area to the south with the diagonal hatching in black, that's the Kern Delta Water District. And combined, the blue boundary would be the boundary of the GSA. So that's one kind of option that we're working on. This is limited to the city's boundary and the Kern Delta Water District. That's pretty straightforward. The map on the left, the larger GSA, includes adjacent areas, such as some areas north of the city and east of the city, that by their adjacency, by their kind of immediate being next to the city, it makes sense for some reasons to be considered as part of the GSA. And there's some areas, unincorporated areas within kind of the city that's shown as islands on the map on the right that also may make sense to become part of the GSA. As Ms. Gennaro said, we're working on this, and this is something that's kind of in motion right now, but these are kind of the two options. And in the middle, there may be something that might be in between these two maps. But this is just an update on where we're at today. And here's a close-up of the larger GSA. And out of interest, the area of the larger GSA is about 242,000 acres. And the area of the more limited GSA is about 201,000 acres. So it's about a difference of about 40,000 acres. So today there's no action requested. This is an informational meeting, and it's worthwhile pointing out a couple dates here for the month of March. Yesterday, the Kern Delta Water District had their public hearing, and that all went fine. And as Mr. Gennaro mentioned, we're hoping to come back towards the end of the month, and at that time the city would consider a resolution to form the Kern River GSA in collaboration with the Kern Delta Water District and perhaps some other agencies as well. A draft resolution was provided for your review, and if there are any updates, you'll be seeing any updated versions of that resolution. Similarly, towards the end of the month, you'd be asked to consider approving an MOU that would formalize who these GSA members are. And in a sense, what that would do would be finalize that GSA map. Who's participating in this GSA. So that's coming at the end of the month. Following that time, if the GSA is formed and approved and MOUs are signed and approved and we move forward, then what we would do is submit the information to the Department of Water Resources. We have 30 days by the law to submit that information following approval of the GSA. This information pack, which city staff will work on, will include the maps, the boundary areas, the copies of the resolutions, the noticing for the public hearings, all of that, the applicable MOU documents, and the list of interested parties. This all kind of goes in a submittal package and goes up to Department of Water Resources in Sacramento. They review it, and at time that they first review it for completeness, and they have guidance on what is a complete package, then they check for overlap. And at that point, they're going to post within 15 days, if the notification packet is complete, they're going to post it on their website. If they find overlap, they're going to tag the status as overlap. Okay? If there is no overlap, the 90-day clock starts ticking. So April, May, June, so sometime by early July, if everything goes well, hopefully we'll find that we have an exclusive GSA status there with Department of Water Resources. And then at that point, you say, okay, the GSA is formed, and then we start going to the next steps, which then becomes preparing a groundwater sustainability plan. I mentioned that was due January 31st, 2020, and that might seem like a long time off, 4 years. It's not a long time in terms of putting together such a plan. You know, groundwater moves slowly, and probably working on groundwater can move slowly as well for a number of reasons. But developing the plan involves several technical steps. There's a lot of data collection and analysis and modeling. There's a lot of information that needs to be developed, and then the plan needs to set some targets, and that's something that needs to be discussed and reviewed. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The State Department of Water Resources recently published emergency regulations which frame up what's to be included in that sustainability plan, the one that's due in 2020. So we now have guidance on what is required to be in the plan. So that's good. The fourth bullet there, perhaps, is the biggest challenge of the whole act. And that is the GSP, the plan, the regulations focus on coordination and agreement across GSAs. So you get to 2020, you've formed your GSA, good. You've set a plan, good. you also have to ensure that your plan locally has some level of coordination and perhaps even agreement with other GASAs that are occurring in the Kern County subbasin. You can't get to a situation at the end of January 2020 where everyone in the Kern County subbasin is saying different things. That's what the law is requesting there. So that's a challenge. Along the way, the Kern County GSA will continue to meet and coordinate with these other interested parties and potential other GSAs in the subbasin. That's the plan. So, in closing today, another important aspect of complying with SGMA is there's a component about public outreach and making this information available to the public. Department of Water Resources wants to know that these GSAs and plans are developed in a way such that there's opportunities for the public to get involved or provide input. And so if there are any interested parties here today who would like to provide comments on what's been presented today or ask follow-up questions, please contact send an email to that email address up there, water@bakersfieldcity.us. Art and Jason are here from the Water Department, and that is the email that will be tracked there, and people can provide comments. Down the road, once the GSA is formed, we're hoping to have opportunities to collect public input through either a workshop or other type of public forum. So I think with that, I'll conclude, and thank you very much for your time.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing on this item and ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition. Persons wishing to speak in opposition. Seeing none, I will now ask if there are persons present who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Please come forward, identify yourself, and proceed.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Dennis Fox. While she's handing out the stuff, something I thought I would mention to you. And that's the river that's north of us, called the San Joaquin. Same outfit that's pumping the water out from beneath the city was pumping it out from up there. Their county passed an ordinance last year called banning of water mining for export. Now, I don't see that happening here, especially from our county, which doesn't even charge the same people who are doing that up there. They do it down here, and they don't even have to pay taxes. So that's why I'm in favor of, one of the reasons I'm in favor of it, because if the city does not form a district, it will be under the jurisdiction of the county. The county has historically, and it remains currently, through the benefit zones, assessment tax, a funding source for program farmers who are often not even local and have a focus on farming the taxpayers. And they are not very friendly to regular farmers. The water in the city aquifer is migrating to areas such as the water bank, where it replaces water that is being sent outside the local basin, and then it in turn is being also so removed. This attack on our local supply will increase as saltation of county areas increases due to the imports. You know, there's a little bit of salt and it just keeps building up as it comes down. If new water is available, like for example, at Isabella, would not the city want such resources applied to recharge its aquifer down the road? In sum, the city should see to it that local water, that it's used for local benefit. Thank you.
Are there additional persons present who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation? Persons wishing to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. See now, I'll close the public hearing on this item and return to council for comment and action. Vice Mayor Hansen, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I have a question. Could you step up to the microphone, please? And I should know the answer. By the way, for those out there that don't work with water people all the time, this is very complicated, so it's not an easy subject. But what is the timing issue if some other agency or water district would like to participate with us in our GSA, could they come along 30 days, 60 days, 90 days from now?
So beyond what's being formed right now,
Well, I'll just throw out a name, Kerr Delta.
yeah. So the law provides opportunity for, once the GSA is formed, to modify the boundary of that GSA. That can occur through the law. There's a process to do that.
And there's no time limit or issue as far as
No. There's-
doing that?
No. The time limits occur at the outset. Now, actually, you raised a question that I don't know, but Mr. Gennaro might know, is that once you get beyond that July 2017 date, I think you have to form the GSA by that date. I think you can modify it in due course over time. Okay?
Okay.
If once the GSA is formed and other folks seek to join it, there is a process. It involves steps to do.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Thank you. Actually, I had a question also. And actually, it's clarification for people who are either listening or anybody that doesn't quite understand some of the things, some of the terminology used. I think the most important one that you used was called overdraft. Would you define that for people?
Sure, sure. Overdraft, perhaps the easiest conceptual way is to think about it as just like your bank account. When you go into overdraft, you've taken out more than you've put in. And that's the same thing with groundwater in a sense. When you're in overdraft, you're in a situation of kind of declining groundwater levels, because what's been withdrawn or taken out over some time period is not sufficient, is exceeding what's being put in.
Okay.
Okay,
Can you define that for this area?
In terms of numerically,
Quantitatively?
quantitatively, I'd have to look it up. As far as the map, the Department of Water Resources map and why they're saying it's in critical overdraft, that threshold, I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay, that might be good information.
We
for
can
us.
provide that as follow-up.
Also, I think it was your last slide, you were talking about some of the hurdles that we have, and the most important one was the coordination of the different GSAs together to come up with a sustainability plan for a particular basin. Now, is that based on 100% participation or agreement, or is that if 75% of the people in that area agree, then they can force the other 25% to agree with them?
I don't know.
Okay. Colin,
I don't know.
any idea on that one?
Mayor, Councilmember Maxwell, that's not established yet under the law. And our hope is here with the Kern River GSA is that if we have our act together and there are others within the basin that do not have their act together, that the State Water Resources Control Board is going to look upon us a little bit more favorably than the others. But I think as Ken mentioned, the goal of this legislation ultimately was that it doesn't matter how many GSAs are in that basin, but that entire basin has to fit together nicely in terms of pieces of a puzzle with a GSA or multiple GSAs, and then all of those plans have to cover that entire basin. It's a formidable task.
Very well stated. Thank you. What sort of a motion are we looking for? A continuation till next meeting?
Yes, Councilmember Maxwell, we're looking for a motion to continue this matter to March 30th for adoption of the resolution and approval of the MOU.
I will so move.
There being no further comments from council on this item, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
As we've all been previously informed, the staff has pulled a closed session item from the agenda. There being no further business for the 3:30 meeting, we stand adjourned.
Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by your local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Harvey L. Hall.
We did not have a closed session this evening, so there are no items to report out on closed session. It's my pleasure to call to order the City Council meeting of March the 2nd, 2016, and ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Hall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Maxwell,
Here.
Councilmember Weir,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
I am here.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Here.
Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor.
At this time, I would like us all to stand for the invocation by Minister Kathy Shelton of the Cornerstone Church. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by James Ierson, first grade student at Independence Elementary School.
Thank you, God. Heavenly Father, we just welcome you tonight. Father, ask for the blood of the Lamb to cover every mind and every heart in this place, God. I thank you for your divine will to be done mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, socially, in the name of Jesus Christ. God, I thank you. I give you the glory and the honor. I thank you for Mayor and everybody represented in this chair, these chairs tonight, God. God, you said you sent your word and healed them and loosed them from destruction. So, God, I thank you for your divine intervention and your will to be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we proceed, I request that all cellular telephones and communication devices be silenced. Pursuant to City Council policy, council members are prohibited from sending or receiving electronic communications during the meeting, and we request the same from our audience. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chambers. Also, please be courteous in the use of any still cameras and video equipment. Audience applause is allowed during the presentation portion of the meeting, but is not permissible at any other time during the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. I'd like to recognize this evening the Bakersfield College Political Science class who have joined us this evening to learn about city government. And I hope that you'll take a lot from this evening's meeting and come back at a future meeting. You're always welcome to come back and observe the good work that the City Council does. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under presentation, 4A, a presentation of a proclamation to Vanessa Emo, President of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club, declaring March 7 through 12, 2016, Boys and Girls Club Week in Bakersfield.
They're shy now.
Oh, they don't want to.
No, they got
Okay.
shy.
We are graced in the city of Bakersfield and surrounding areas to have the Boys and Girls Club be a part of making life better for our children in this community. Each day, nearly 700 children take advantage of the Boys and Girls Club and the services that they provide to these kids. And they have recently, in the last year, at the Armstrong Center on Nile Street, have added new playground opportunities for the children. And here in 3 weeks, we'll be having another recognition there in which several large donors are contributing to create a new baseball field and related recreational opportunities for the kids there at the Armstrong Boys and Girls Club. This evening, I'd like to offer the following proclamation. Whereas the young people of Bakersfield are tomorrow's leaders, and whereas many young people need professional youth services to guide them so that they may reach their full potential. And whereas there are 49 Boys and Girls Clubs in Bakersfield, Kern County, providing services to more than 6,000 young people annually, and whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs places where great futures start and are at the forefront of efforts to support academic success, healthy lifestyles, good character, citizenship, and whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs in our city help ensure that our young people are kept off the streets, offering them a safe and supportive refuge, one that provides quality programs, and whereas Boys and Girls Clubs in Bakersfield will celebrate National Boys and Girls Club Week 2016, along with some 4,000 Boys and Girls Club across America and more than 2 million young people nationwide. Now therefore, I, Harvey L. Hall, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim the week of March 7th, 2016 through March 12th, 2016 as Boys and Girls Week, Club Week in our city, and call on all citizens to join in recognizing and commending the Boys and Girls Club of Kern County for providing comprehensive, effective services to the young people in our community. Dated at Bakersfield, California, the second day of March 2016, signed Harvey L. Hall, Mayor, City of Bakersfield. And representing the Boys and Girls Club tonight is Vanessa Immo, and she is the president of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club of Kern County.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hall. Thank you, Bakersfield City Council. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Kern County, I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing all of the hard work that our staff do on behalf of the children here in this community. National Boys and Girls Clubs Week is an opportunity to really learn more about the programs that we offer at each one of our sites. On Monday, March 7th, we have opened the door to academic success, so you can learn about the programs that we're doing to help get children to get their homework done and really want to excel in school. On Tuesday, it's open the door to teens, where we're able to focus on working with the teens who are in our community and making sure they're on the right path for success. On Wednesday, March 9th, it's open the door to good character and citizenship, which is something that all children should be striving for and is their opportunity to really learn from some great mentors. On Thursday, March 10th, it's open the door to healthy lifestyles, an opportunity for them to learn about nutrition and exercise and what it means to really understand all that it takes to maintain a healthy body and lifestyle. And then finally, on Friday, March 11th, we open our doors and we ask that you come take a tour. Take a look and see exactly all the great programs that we offer, how often our staff are really intervening on behalf of the lives of the children in this community. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for the proclamation and recognizing all of our efforts on behalf of the children in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Mayor, the next item is a presentation of a proclamation to Christine Gronkowski, Community Development Manager, National Multiple Sclerosis Society of Southern California and Nevada Chapter, declaring March 7th through the 13th, 2016, Multiple Sclerosis Society Awareness Week.
Multiple sclerosis, MS, is one of those diseases that affects our community each day and causes a lot of unhappiness for families and patients in dealing with the care and the treatment of MS. We have a terrific MS organization here in Bakersfield and Kern County which works tirelessly to help us look for ways in which we can better care for the MS patients and provide sophisticated care to treat this terrible disease. Today, I'd like to offer the following proclamation. Whereas multiple sclerosis, MS, is a neurological disease of the central nervous system affecting at least 2.3 million people worldwide And in Kern County, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, Southern California, Nevada chapter serves approximately 1,000 people diagnosed with MS. Whereas the disease generally strikes people in the prime of life between ages 20 and 50 and causes unpredictable effects in which the progression, severity, and specific symptoms cannot be foreseen. And the cause and cure for this often debilitating disease remain unknown. And whereas since 1946, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has been a driving force of MS research, relentlessly pursuing prevention, treatment, and a cure, and has invested more than $920 million in groundbreaking research, while the Southern California, Nevada chapter has been committed for more than 60 years to creating a world free of MS, heightening public knowledge about and insight into the disease while mobilizing people and resources so that everyone affected by MS can live their best lives as we stop MS in its tracks, restore what has been lost, and end MS forever. And whereas funds raised through the National Multiple Sclerosis Society support the efforts of more than 380 research projects globally, totaling nearly $54 million annually, inspiring hope for finding a cure and discovering the cause. And whereas the importance of putting an end to the chronic and often devastating disease that is MS is of utmost importance. Now, therefore, I, Harvey L. Hall, Mayor, City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim March the 7th through the 13th, 2016, as Multiple Sclerosis Week in our city, and urge all citizens to learn more about multiple sclerosis and what they can do to support individuals with MS, as well as the families of those afflicted. And it's dated in Bakersfield, California, the second day of March 2016, signed Harvey L. Hall, Mayor of City of Bakersfield. And this evening, I have Christine Gronkowski, who is a Community Development Manager for MS here in Kern County.
Thank you. On behalf of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society and the thousand people who live with MS here locally, thank you, Mayor Hall. Also, thank you to the City Council members for proclaiming next week MS Awareness Week in Bakersfield. MS is a disease that slows or stops the messages the brain's trying to send to the rest of the body. It causes a number of symptoms: numbness, tingling, blindness, paralysis, fatigue, pain. As the mayor mentioned, we don't have a cure. There's no known cause. So the MS Society raises money for research. We also provide programs and services for people affected by MS in our communities. I have been with the Bakersfield office for 7 years now, and in my 7 years, I've seen major progress. In fact, by the end of this year, we're expecting the FDA to approve our first treatment for the progressive form of MS. So it's a major breakthrough, and it's a breakthrough that wouldn't happen without the support of leaders such as you, also with our community of Bakersfield, who raises $100,000 annually at our Bakersfield Walk MS in October. So again, thank you for recognizing the work of the MS Society and also proclaiming next week MS Awareness Week.
Mayor, the next presentation is a presentation of a proclamation to Amy Smith, Director of Development, Central Valley and Kern Chapters, American Red Cross, declaring March 2016 Red Cross Month in Bakersfield.
One of you on each side.
Okay.
Yeah. I now have the opportunity to give recognition to another outstanding organization in our community. Unfortunately, disasters occur each day in our community and in Kern County. And who is first there to help the people affected by being burned out of their homes or unexpected emergencies that they need help with? Well, that's the American Red Cross. And they have such an outstanding group of volunteers that help each day to offer the many services that they do. The mayor of the city of Bakersfield, California, has officially proclaimed March 2016 as Red Cross Month in our city, in recognition of helping those in need, in recognition of the wide array of assistance provided in the face of disasters and tragedies, whether the scope be large or small, including securing shelter, offering medical assistance, supplying blood, providing food, water, and immunizations, and in recognition of the 24-hour support available to members of the military and veterans, as well as their families, and in recognition of the life-saving training offered, such as CPR and lifeguarding skills, and in recognition of the ongoing service offered through the Restoring Family Links program, reconnecting families separated by crisis, conflict, or migration, and in the recognition of the Red Cross volunteers, the everyday heroes that make the organization work locally, nationally, and around the world. And it's signed Harvey L. Hall, Mayor, City of Bakersfield, and Amy Smith, the Director of Development of the Red Cross, is here joining me, and she has a extra guest that I didn't get the name for, but they're both very committed volunteers for the American Red Cross. Okay, so let's.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'm going to introduce Chris Schwartz. Chris is our Kern Chapter Board President. And Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Hall, City Council members, and other residents of the community for being here this evening. The Kern American Red Cross is a vital part of our community. There's a lot of volunteers that help go into this organization, and I want to thank not only them, but for your leadership and support of this organization. Every year, the American Red Cross designates the month as March Red Cross Month, a time to recognize our nation's everyday heroes who help those in need in our community. They go out in the middle of night to respond to disasters, whether small or large. They deliver comfort items to military members in the hospital or wherever they are that need them. They help provide life-saving skills through CPR, first aid, and drowning, choking, and things of that nature. They volunteer their valuable time every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to members of this community, whoever needs it. During the month and any else time, you can become a volunteer as well. You can donate your time, talents, and treasures to this organization. And I would encourage you and other members of the community to do just that. Take a few moments, go out on a disaster, or talk to volunteers and see what they do and listen to their stories. Test your smoke detectors. Make an emergency plan for you and your family. And I would encourage you, those around you, to make that plan as well. And everybody thinks it's not going to happen to me until it happens to them. And it usually happens about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday morning or a Saturday morning when nobody's prepared for it. Learn some of those life-saving skills. Take a CPR or a first aid class. Learn how to do that. Help save a life if it's necessary. Every day, the American Red Cross depends on these local heroes to provide that service. I'm currently the board chair, but I have to tell you, I've been volunteering with the Red Cross since 1993, and I enjoy every second of what I do for this chapter. 90% of the Red Cross workforce is volunteers. All of the money that comes in through donations. We are not a government agency. 91 cents of every dollar goes to that, that message that we share. So we encourage you and others to discover your inner hero, not only during this month, but throughout the rest of the year. Thank you for your time this evening, and have a good evening.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is 5 public statements.
At this time, we will receive public statements. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please provide it to the city clerk, who will then provide the necessary copies to the city council. If you are here to speak on hearing items 10A, this is not the time for you to speak. Members of the audience are asked to avoid engaging in any behavior that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Please do not criticize or impugn the mayor, the city council, or any member of the staff or the audience. The city council is very interested and concerned with your issues. Due to the public notice requirements of the Brown Act, the city council cannot take action on an item when it is not on the agenda. The city council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, please call the first public speaker.
Mayor, we have 4 speakers this evening. The first is Ray Scott regarding Great American Cleanup, Greater Bakersfield Green Expo.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening, Ray Scott, Keep Bakersfield Beautiful, and the Greater Bakersfield Green Expo. This year is even more significant for the fact that in front of you, you have the flyer with the new logo for the 15th annual Bakersfield Great American Cleanup. And with that also comes, because of what Bakersfield does and the standout affiliate it is, Jennifer Jen, the CEO, president for Keep America Beautiful, will be here with us for Saturday the 23rd and possibly Friday the 22nd when we judge the Greater Bakersfield Green Expo, the only high school student recycled material art contest in the state, if not in the country. These are the type of things that has set Bakersfield apart and the reason why she's coming. She's coming so that way she can talk with Mayor Hall, she can talk with the board for Keep Bakersfield Beautiful and the participants. Jennifer Jen comes from Wall Street. She's very much in command of what she does, how she brands things, and what she's doing for Keep America Beautiful. And she has, met a number of people from Bakersfield and is excited to be here on Saturday. But this also being an anniversary date of the 15th year that Bakersfield has held the Great American Cleanup is a milestone. And once again, just shows the depth of Bakersfield. On the 10th, I spoke about Keep Bakersfield Beautiful and the art of collaboration that board, that group has, collaborating with governmental entities, nonprofits, private businesses, then of course the volunteers. The volunteers are key to what makes Bakersfield beautiful. And I just wanted to invite you, make sure, please put this on your calendar. This will be a great event. And thank you for, once again, for all the city does to keep Bakersfield beautiful. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Keisha Rains regarding Smiles for Diabetics.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Keisha Rains. I am the new director of Smiles for Diabetics. We are a new diabetic organization in Bakersfield to help people manage their diabetes one step at a time. Our goal is to help people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes with cooking classes and camps throughout the community. This summer, we're going to be hosting our first camp called Camp Sunnyside. This is a spinoff from the camps we did when I was a high school student at Stockdale High. And our camps are going to be for children from 5 to 12 years old with type 1 diabetes, as well as other cooking classes and other activities throughout the community. I'm also a Beautiful Bakersfield Award recipient in 2004 in the youth category for diabetes camps, and then Gold Award and Do Something Brick Award 2004 nominee flying to New York for the scholarship. But I'd like to welcome you to our organization. We are new in town. We'd certainly love to work with you, love to get the word out about type 1 and type 2 diabetes and how we can change Bakersfield. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
Jimmy Soto regarding AB 2565.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Jimmy Soto. I'm the Executive Director for the Independent Living Center of Kern County. I'm here this evening to talk to you about Assembly Bill 2565. It's a bill championed by Assembly Member Rudy Salas. And I just wanted your support in sending a letter of support to his office about this bill. Just to let you know, the Board of Supervisors has already sent in their letter of support, and all of our state assembly and state senators have already sent in their letters of support, including Tom Lackey's office, Gene Fuller's office, Andy Vadek's office, and Shannon Grove's office. What the bill is it has to do with base rate funding for independent living centers. There are 28 independent living centers in the state of California. 25 of those centers get this base rate funding. There's 3 centers that do not get it, and the base rate funding is $235,000 annually. And the 3 centers that do not get the base rate funding is the center that's in Auburn, the center in Modesto, and the center in Bakersfield. So what the bill does is it scratches out some language that's in the Welfare and Institutions Code that was written in 1993. So the problem with that Welfare and Institutions Code is 23 years ago, it was set up to provide funding to 3 centers, which are the 3 centers that don't get this base rate funding. They were funded with what they call 7C monies, and then the remaining 25 got base rate funding. But here we are 23 years later, and now all the other 25 centers get 7C money. So we have 25 centers that get 7C money plus base rate, and then you got 3 centers that only get 7C money. And the reason why they're excluded is because it's written in the Welfare and Institutions Code that we're not eligible for that base rate funding. So I actually sent you, Mayor Hall, yesterday some information about the bill, the letter of support. I've actually sent all the city council members today through that, through your email, that I sent in. It was addressed to all the city council members. So I sent you guys all that information, all the letters of supports that you can see from Rudy Salas's office and our Board of Supervisors. So I guess I'm just asking you guys to please look at that. Please send in your letter of support to Rudy Salas's office. And the last thing I wanted to point out is that this bill provides $235,000 to 3 different centers, but all 3 centers actually cover 11 different counties. So one thing that's a little bit unique is that my center only serves Kern County. So 1/3 of that money goes directly into Kern County, and then my office, the Independent Living Center of Kern County, is located in Bakersfield, and 90% of the people that we serve all live here in Bakersfield. And if you didn't know, so we're a nonprofit, and we serve people with disabilities, all disabilities and all ages. So out of all the cities that would benefit if this legislation gets passed is the city of Bakersfield. So just appreciate if you can send in your letter of support, and thank you for your time, Mayor and City Council.
Mr. Soto, I'll be happy to author a letter of support for this bill on behalf of myself and the City Council.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public speaker.
The last speaker, Mayor, is David Milazzo regarding Bakersfield Marathon.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is David Milazzo. I'm the president of the Active Bakersfield Alliance and co-founder of the Bakersfield City Marathon. We are excited to bring the first official city marathon to the streets of Bakersfield, not running around in the woods, but running through literally the city streets. We're developing an event the likes of which Bakersfield has never seen. Premier event will be a USA Track and Field Boston qualifying marathon, running through Bakersfield's most historic neighborhoods. Our race starts and ends at CSU Bakersfield, and the university has graciously offered to host the finish line celebration for us. Participants will run through a dozen iconic neighborhoods, including our Stockdale Financial District, if you'll allow that name, The Oleander area, downtown Bakersfield, Mill Creek, the Kern County Museum, Bakersfield College, and finally along the Panorama Bluffs before we hit the Kern River Bike Parkway and haul our way back to Cal State Bakersfield. In addition to the full marathon, we are going to provide an abundance of associated events for those not interested in running 26.2. A half marathon relay, a 5K run walk around the CSUB campus. And these running events, coupled with a healthy living expo and a finish line celebration, will round out the weekend race events. In addition to giving local runners an opportunity to run a Boston qualifying marathon in their own backyard, we couldn't be more proud of our children's marathon. And partnering with the Boys and Girls Club of Kern County, we are developing a race geared towards the younger members of our community. Kids between the ages of 5 and 12 will have an opportunity to run half-mile distances over a course of 3 months. And then on race day, they'll complete their final mile at CSUB and celebrate completing their first official marathon with many cheering fans around them. We expect this element of our weekend to be vastly satisfying for the children, their parents, and any spectators lucky enough to watch the next generation find joy in conquering a sizable goal and embracing an active lifestyle. As you might imagine, our race weekend has multiple angles. In addition to providing a race for Kern County residents, young and old, we see a great potential to lure runners to Bakersfield from around the U.S. and the globe. And what better way to showcase our city than to lead them down the primrose path of our choosing? To have the ability to showcase the best of Bakersfield to visitors from near and far by directing exactly how they view our city by way of the course in which we meander them through the city streets. We're immensely excited about the potential of the marathon to not only bring significant revenue to our town, but to heighten the excitement about our community to serve those outside our community. Bakersfield is a beautiful city, and with the Bakersfield Marathon, we have a chance to prove it. Whether a local or a visitor, the 2016 Bakersfield Marathon brings immense value to the participant and to our city as a whole. Now, producing an event of this caliber is no small feat, as you may imagine. My co-founder and the president of the Active Bakersfield Alliance, Charles Brown, and I have been working towards today since 2012, quite a while. And we have many folks to thank, in addition to our excellent board of directors, Norma Diaz, Ellen Dowd, Chris Hamilton, Karen Langston, and Margaret Pattison. We'd like to thank the council and the city manager's office for embracing this large event. A full city marathon is not a trivial undertaking.
Excuse me, Mr. Milazzo, your
Yeah.
3 minutes have expired. Please
Thank you.
bring your statement to a close.
I was closing. We are just excited to continue the discussion with you to have a world-class 2016 Bakersfield Marathon. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 6, workshops.
Hold on just a minute. Mr. Milazzo, come back to the podium, please. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just am very excited about this and appreciate all the hard work you've put into it and the exposure that Bakersfield will get. I've been to marathons in other cities, and it does draw a big crowd, and it's great to show off a city, like you say, the way you like to. And we've got a lot of beautiful parts to Bakersfield, and it'll be fun showing them off, and promoting health and active lifestyle is wonderful. So do appreciate your work, and good luck on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, again, next item, please.
Workshop 6A, Thomas Roads Improvement Program update.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Honorable Mayor and council members, Nick Fiddler, Public Works Director. Tonight I'll be providing you an update of the TRIP program. Give me a brief second to get it started up. So as you can see, or have seen in driving around town, we have several major projects being under construction right now, incorporating all three of our major state highways, 99, 178, and 58. The first project up there is State Route 99 and Hosking Avenue interchange. That project is currently 99% complete. Rosedale Highway widening project is 70% complete. State Route 178 widening project, 22% complete. The Beltway Operational Improvement Project, which incorporates both elements on 58 and 99, is 23% complete. and State Route 99 auxiliary lane at Rosedale Highway. This project's total $148 million in construction costs. The Hosking Avenue State Route 99 interchange, this project, like I said, is 99% complete, and we'll be having a ribbon cutting on March 11th, 2016 at 11 a.m., and I hope to see all of you out there. This project will relieve a lot of congestion on both Panama Lane and Taft Highway. The project adding a full interchange to State Route 99 will definitely relieve a lot of the development areas in that adjacent to the Hosking Avenue interchange. Rosedale Highway widening project has been under construction and is planned to be complete in October 2016. Very challenging project, several driveways up and down the corridor, a lot of unknown utilities, so appreciate your patience during construction, but it will be a well worthwhile project once complete. State Route 178 widening project. This project is anticipated to be complete of April 2017. Another nice widening project to help bring in traffic from the east side of town. The Beltway Operational Improvement Project, again, this is on both corridors, State Route 58 and State Route 99. A lot of the past work has been focused on the medians on State Route 58 and on the shoulders on State Route 99. However, on State Route 58, we are now shifting to the outsides to do widening along the exterior of the freeway. State Route 99 Aux Lane at Rosedale Highway. This is a project just started construction earlier last month. This one adds an auxiliary lane on southbound State Route 99 from Gilmore Avenue to the off-ramp at Rosedale Highway. It improves the Rosedale Highway off-ramp from 1 to 2 lanes, and the project also includes a retaining wall along the west side of the ramp. The construction activities began February 2016 and is anticipated to be complete in early 2017. As you can see, we have several major projects also in design. The Truxton Avenue widening project, it's estimated currently at $3 million, and we anticipate bidding that early 2017. The 24th Street improvements from M Street to 99 is estimated at $32 million, and the bidding is still to be determined. Hegman flyover, State Route 99 to Knudsen, estimated at $50 million, and again, bid time is still to be determined. That is still in early stages of design. And then Centennial Corridor, State Route 99 to West Side Parkway is estimated at construction costs at $306 million, and this project will be constructed in multiple phases. The Truxton Avenue widening project widens Truxton from just east of Empire Drive to just east of truly Elm Street. The slide says Oak, but it stretches a little bit to Elm. The final design, we're currently at 60% complete. We will be moving into some right-of-way partial acquisitions as the design reaches a little bit further. We typically around 60-65% we start doing our right-of-way acquisitions. So we're getting very close to that stage. 24th Street improvements. The recirculated draft environmental impact report was circulated for public review from January 11th to February 25th of this year. All comments that pertain specifically to the recirculated draft environmental impact report will be responded to and included in the final environmental impact report. The City Council will then consider certifying the FER at an upcoming council meeting. The Hegman flyover. This project connects Hegman Road west of State Route 99 to State Route 204. Caltrans is the designer, with the City of Bakersfield being the oversight. The project is approximately 60% complete in final design, and we will be starting the right-of-way acquisition probably mid-2016. The Centennial Corridor, this 1.6-mile connector between the West Side Parkway and the eastern end of State Route 58. The project is, on December 4th, 2015, Caltrans approved and signed the final environmental document. Circulation closed January 11th, 2016, and the record of decision, or otherwise known as ROD, was approved on February 8th, 2016, and the ROD was published in the Federal Register February 19th, 2016. So the next steps for the Centennial Corridor, now that the ROD has been published, we will start advanced preliminary engineering will start going into final design. We are anticipating to submit 65% drawings to Caltrans later this month. In addition, we will begin Phase 1 construction later this year. The Centennial Corridor, Phase 1 is the Centennial Corridor Kern River bridges, which is shown in the slide here. That's basically the bridges that will connect the West Side Parkway and carry it over to the southeasterly side of Truxtun Avenue. Now that the ROD has been published, and we are also starting the additional right-of-way services. Actually, I could provide an update of the status of the early acquisition right-of-way. As you can see, this process has been very successful. In the single-family residential, we've obtained 147 of the 199 acquired, which is approximately 74%, with only 52 properties remaining. The multifamily residential, we've acquired 8 of the 9, and that is approximately 89% acquired. The commercial industrial properties, we've acquired 9 of 18, which is 50%. Moving on, now that the ROD has been published, the next thing we are going to be starting is to begin with traditional right-of-way process, which starts with sending the property owners who did not participate in the early acquisition process a notice of decision to appraise. That will start our typical right-of-way acquisition process, which you would see on our normal projects. Now that the environmental document is complete, we can start that process. In addition, we will move into the the demolition of the properties that were acquired through the early acquisition process. Later tonight on the agenda, you'll see a contract amendment for Overland, Pacific, and Cutler's contract, which will include demolition management on the agenda under the consent calendar. This amendment will help facilitate the demolition process. OPC will be the project manager for construction, demolition, and demolition oversight. In addition, with the demolition process, we'll be sending out notices to vacate to occupants. Through some of the parcels that aren't already vacant through the early acquisition process, we'll have to send out 90-day notices to occupants who deserve or are able to have relocation assistance, and then we'll be sending out 30-day notices to occupants that have rented out some of the properties that we've acquired. So there's some time leads that we need to start to issue those notice to vacate so we can move forward with the demolition process. The first phase of the demolition projects will include 2 properties, a commercial property on Stockdale Highway, 3404 3403 Stockdale Highway, and then 25 Williamson Way. As you can see in the photo, both these properties have been vacant for some time. The 25 Williamson Way is a multi-family apartment complex. It's been kind of a nuisance for several years and became more of a nuisance after the project, or after the tenants have evacuated the building. You can see since October there's been over 20 visits to the complex, vandalism. AC units have been destroyed, stripped of all copper. Wall-mounted AC units have been stolen, resecured, and boarded up 21 times. Trash removal, debris removal multiple times due to dumping. Homeless used the site for shelter and illegal activities. Drug paraphernalia found in multiple units after break-ins. Vandals tunneled through 4 apartments. That's where they actually broke through walls to get to one apartment to the next. And code enforcement, BPD assistance, 13 times over a 6-month period. I'll give you a few more pictures that show you some of the issues that were associated with the 25 Williamson Way. You see all the debris that's left behind from various people that travel through the facility. You can see where they've broken through walls to take out copper wires or various fixtures inside the units. We've boarded up the buildings multiple times, and they just go through and strip the boards back off and regain entry. You can see up here, this is a ceiling where they actually went up into the ceiling or the attic of the buildings. The second phase will include some single-family housings. Most of them are located off of Dunlap Street. The one that in particular in the photos is 18 Dunlap Street. There are several empty single-family homes in this area through the early acquisition process. We're proposing to move forward with the demolition of these houses as well. There's been squatters found on several occasions, multiple break-ins, tunneled through exterior wall into the home. We've boarded up and resecured 9 times over an 8-month period. Significant debris removal 3 times, gates resecured over 25 times, code enforcement, BPT, and assistance 4 times, not including regular patrol activity. We are patrolling the areas as much as possible to try to limit these activities, but it's becoming a challenge in some of these areas. 18, this is more pictures of 18 Dunlap. You can see the efforts we've done to board up the buildings, and they still come in there and tear off the boards and gain entry. A lot of the windows are boarded up from the inside, the doors are boarded up from the outside, just trying to keep these properties secure. Again, more photos of the inside of that facility. You can see the homeless activities that occur in there and how they're also breaking through the walls to take out whether it be copper or fixtures or anything that they think is of value. Again, on next steps, after the ROD has been published, we're working towards obtaining TIFIA funding. A letter of interest has been submitted to TIFIA February 5th. TIFIA acknowledged receipt and is conducting preliminary review. Review process is lengthy and will take several months. City needs to approach a rating agency for preliminary credit rating. This action is pending final resolution of the validation appeal process. So, like I said, there's a lot of new activity now that the ROD is published. We're moving forward, working towards going into final design, working towards establishing demolition contracts, and now also working towards the TIFIA funding programs. And that completes my presentation.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Nick, I just had a few questions. As this process goes on and you start taking properties from people who really don't want to sell them, or the people that you're currently in negotiation with, I've had several phone calls and they don't feel like they're being treated in the best interest. Short of recommending they get a lawyer, is there somebody in the city or with Overland that they should be contacting?
You know, I would probably defer that question to Don Anderson, who is our property manager. He would probably be the right person to contact through the process.
And then, Don, as I send these people to you, would you mind giving me some follow-up as to what happens? Certainly. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciated the pictures that you showed at the end there about all of the problems that getting this property early has created. It gives a great deal of belief to the complaints I've been getting and the people that have appeared in front of us, complaining about the fact that when we took all these properties early, that it has turned their neighborhoods into war zones and into areas that nobody would want to live in. And I would hope that the city learns a lesson on this, that in the future, if we are going to do something like this, that let's wait until we've got the ROD already in place before we start purchasing people's property, because we knew this was going to happen. And to move forward like this, it was disingenuous to the people who live in those neighborhoods, because we don't have the police force to really give them the kind of protection they deserved. So as I say, I really hope that the city learns their lesson on that, and then in the future, even if those funds are available early, that we withhold until we've got everything in line, so that those people can live as normal a life as possible before their properties get taken from them. So otherwise, I thought it was a good presentation. My one question, and Nick, you may want to just respond to me on this separately. I was looking at the design for Hegman Flyover, and I noticed that if you're on Hegman Flyover and you are headed west, and I'm not sure if it's west or north or what the heck it is, but if you're coming from the west and you're headed east.
Headed east.
Headed east. There is no on-ramp onto 99.
That's correct. There is not.
So maybe you could send me a little bit of information as to why that's not part of the design, because I think that's part of what you want to take from the northwest is for them to have another way of getting onto the 99 freeway. I measured it, and there's no problems about it being a mile away from Rosedale Highway. I did not measure it the other way as far as Olive Drive. So
You have the connector for Olive Drive and the connector for 204 in
Right.
that same location.
okay, send me some more information on it, some measurements and everything. I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, as I say, I thought it was a good presentation.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Thank you, Mayor. Nick, 2 times Councilmember Maxwell used the term when the people first had their property taken from them. Is that correct? Does that give a correct impression of what has happened, what has taken place?
The process up to now has been voluntary, so the property owners volunteered to come to the city for us to purchase their property.
And then the word purchase was used, but first and then last, it was said when the people's property was first taken. And that's offensive and that's incorrect, gives the wrong impression. And so I did want to have that clarified. Would you repeat that one more time, Nick?
All the purchases up to date were voluntary. We did not reach out to them. They reached out to us.
And really, we were not expecting these delays. And I happen to know several of the families that did eagerly participated in this opportunity, and are very pleased with the way they were handled. Normally, we do very well coming to an agreement with the value. Usually it's on the high side.
Correct.
And one lady in particular, they really had intended to be in their house forever and had put a certain amount into their home, but delighted that they had a way out, because she said, but we still had an old house. The house was still old, and we're delighted with the new home that we have. But anyway, thank you, Nick. That needed to be clarified.
Vice Mayor Hanson, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. That is my motion.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 8A through 8AA for approval.
Vice Mayor Hanson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Does any council member wish to remove an item due to a conflict? Seeing none, does any council member wish to remove an item for separate consideration? Mr. Parlier?
8F, please.
Thank you. Mr. Weir?
Item 8D is in dog.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell?
Item 8P and 8R, please.
Thank you. Okay, then my motion is to approve consent calendar items 8A through 8AA, with the exception of items D. David, P. Paul, R. Robert, F. Frank.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Councilmember Weir on item 8D as in David, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to maybe bifurcate this one item and allow us to vote on it as we did at the last council meeting. So I'm happy to make a motion to approve item 2 on 8D, and I would look for the Vice Mayor to make a motion on item 1. Separately.
Okay. Sorry, Ken, I missed that last portion. of the comment.
I am happy to make a motion to approve item 2 on item 8D, and after we vote, you would need to make the motion on item 1.
Okay, then that is the motion. Also, I guess I probably would put a correction in for myself on that one as well, that originally I voted no on both items 1 and 2, and I would meant to have no on 1 and yes on 2. And then we have I guess that's the motion.
The first motion will be on portion 2 first.
I can clarify that, Mayor, if you'd like.
Please.
Councilmember Weir, with your approval, as I understand it, Councilmember Weir is making a motion to amend Chapter 8.44, which would add the administrative fine process that we talked about. As I understand it, that's Councilmember Weir's motion, a motion to approve and add that administrative fine penalty.
Correct.
Okay, you saved the day again. Thank you.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
And then, Mayor, with your indulgence, the second motion, as I understand from Vice Mayor Hanson, is a motion to amend Chapter 8.44. This was the section that would reduce the number of days that one may use the safe and sane fireworks. You were eliminating July 1st. So it's a motion to reduce the number of allowable days for the use of safe and sane fireworks.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent and Councilmember Weir and Councilmember Sullivan voting no.
The next item will be 8F as in Frank. Councilmember Parlier, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, BARC took a significant funding cut for their vocational programs for our Bakersfield disabled people. In April, I went on a tour with Jim Baldwin, the director of the facility of BARC, and it was just an incredible experience. At that time, those vocational programs were in full swing. People were in various positions and various jobs at the facility, and it really touched me. You know, what's it worth to, you know, put a smile on somebody's face, to interact with somebody at work, to have that self-worth for doing a good job. And unfortunately, those programs, in large part, have gone or are going away. Assembly Bill 1565 will help restore some of that funding if it passes. It's co-authored by Assemblymember Shannon Grove, and I think this is a good first step in reestablishing some of that funding. I also want to thank Darla Benson with NAPD, Jimmy Soda with Independent Living Center, and of course Jim Baldwin with BARC for their fantastic efforts every day helping our Bakersfield disabled family, and I just want to thank you so much. And Mayor, with that, I make a motion to move this item.
You have a motion on item F8. F as in Frank, please.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Councilmember Maxwell on item 8. P as in Paul, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Item 8P is an amendment that was recently referred to by Mr. Fiddler, a increase by $3 million to Overland Pacific and Cutler, and this is to begin the management costs for demolition procurement for the Centennial Corridor project. You know, I was going to sit here and ask a bunch of questions and put people to sleep, but I decided maybe I'd take a different tack tonight. To be consistent on my opposition to borrowing this kind of money, I just want to point out a couple things. You know, we just got a letter, or we just got information that our gas taxes have been cut by 18% by the Board of Equalization. I'm not sure what that's going to do to that fund, but I don't think it's going to be healthy. I think that when we look at the onslaught of job losses in Bakersfield, that should concern us. Sluggish sales tax. The revenues are anemic. People, whether you work for the city or not, people are scared out there. And to move forward with this, we have to borrow $200 to $300 million. Our minimum payment is going to be $14 million a year. And I recently sent an article to the Vice Mayor by a man named John Malden, who is a world-renowned economist, and he was talking about the CalPERS system, which is the California retirement system. And their estimates currently drop from 7.75% on their investments to 7.5%. They also adjusted a few other things, but that's going to mean in about the next 4 to 5 years, the city of Bakersfield will have to pay them an extra $11 million a year. Now, in this article, he advocates, or he convincingly argues, that they probably should have lowered to more like 4% based on the modeling that they're using in their portfolio. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned that just adding more cost to the city, it just isn't the best way to go, and I cannot in good conscience vote for the increase in the expense of this until we have a clear view of exactly how much money we think we're going to have to borrow and what that expense is going to be. So I will not be voting in favor of this particular consent item, and I would ask the Vice Mayor if he would like to go ahead and make a motion. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Hanson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. And I know you and I don't agree on this one, but in my mind, it's called progress. Motion approves staff's recommendation.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent and Councilmember Maxwell voting no.
Councilmember Maxwell on item 8. R as in Robert, please.
And I will note, Vice Mayor Hanson, that we respectfully disagree. 8R is another change order number 25 for the widening of Rosedale Highway. Evidently, during the installation of a 16-inch ductile iron water main, several unmarked utilities were discovered. I think Mr. Fiddler talked about that in his presentation. And that we agreed to pay the contractor an extra $78,244. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just wondering, this change order is funded through the Domestic Water Enterprise Fund, therefore has no general fund impact associated with the change order. I mean, this is a TRIP project. I'm just wondering why we're taking money out of that particular fund and not off of either the gas tax fund, or one of the funds that are normally used for the TRIP projects.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Maxwell, as part of the project during the design process, the Water Resources Department teamed up with our project to install a new water main extension, so it was not part of the TRIP process, but since we were reconstructing the roadway at that time, it became a grand opportunity for them to come in and put their water line in with the project, so we didn't disrupt the roadway twice. So it is a water main extension and rehabilitation. It was funded through the Water Resources Department. It was timing that the both projects came together and went under one contract.
Okay, so it was budgeted into the Water Enterprise Fund? Or
Correct.
it was not?
It was budgeted into the Water Enterprise Fund, yes.
Okay, then I guess I'm not sure why we're even voting on it. If the fund, if it was already approved and
It is still a change order to the contract, so it requires that it
Okay.
goes back to council for approval.
Okay, great, learned something. Thank you very much, and I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve item 8R.
You have a motion, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Mayor, the next item is hearings.
Before I open the public hearing, I want to state the presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It is 15 minutes for all speakers. Therefore, it is important that you identify yourself and make your statement quickly so that others may speak. We will hear statements from those opposed to the staff recommendation first, then we will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. If there is testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal period. You will notice a clock on the wall behind me, which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone and identify yourself, and at 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on, and at the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash, indicating that your time is up, and to quickly end your statement. You may pose questions during your statement, but they will not be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, provide it to the city clerk, will then provide the copies to the city council. Again, please be courteous to others who wish to speak. Unless there is an approval by the majority of the city council, there is a strict 15-minute time limit for all those in favor or in opposition to the staff's recommendation. So please be precise and do not repeat the remarks of previous speakers. Madam Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
Mayor, item 10A is a public hearing to consider Action Plan Amendment Number 5 to U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development FY 2011-12 Action Plan.
Mr. McIsaac, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. This is an item to add an additional $50,000 in available community development block grant funding to complete some needed renovations to City Fire Station 1 in downtown Bakersfield. Specifically, the funding will be used to repair a damaged sewer line and undertake associated rehabilitation work within the same area, including concrete, electrical, and plumbing repairs. The $50,000 that is currently being recommended will be used along with about $79,000 that still remains from a previous CDBG allocation for renovation work to Fire Station 1. And that will be now used to undertake the proposed sewer line repair and associated rehabilitation work in the amount of $121,000. Also, as part of this action, it is proposed acceptance of the bid from Victor Concrete in that amount of $121,000. Concludes my report, and be happy to answer any questions.
At this time, I will open the public hearing on this item and ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I will now ask if there are persons present who wish to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. Persons wishing to speak in favor of the staff recommendation. I will now close the public hearing on this item and return to council for comment and action. Councilmember Maxwell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I have no questions on this, so I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve 10A as it's written.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 13A under new business, consider land use for 5.5 acres of property located at P and Q Streets and potential referral to Planning and Development Committee.
Councilmember Smith, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I tried to refer this item at the last meeting so that we could have a public discussion about what was being privately negotiated on the city-owned property. That referral was objected to by Councilmember Maxwell because, as he stated, he was intimately involved in the negotiations and preferred that it not be sent to committee for discussion. Because of my referral, we've begun to have some public discussion, which is good. There was a newspaper article, and I also heard Councilmember Maxwell on the radio. It needs to continue until a consensus of the majority is reached. I believe this item should go to committee because it is a very complicated decision, and there are many questions which need public discussion in the process. A few of the questions that I have are, do we really want office use? This project is South Mill Creek, and it's always been an entertainment, retail, restaurant vision. That's what we've promised the community, the neighbors, the adjacent property owners. That's what it was going to be for the last few years. If we do want office, how do we control public access to the Mill Creek that we've built, the walkway? What is the interaction of the development with our public amenity? If we want office plus retail, which I've heard now is a possible option, what does that look like? Is the retail on the south side or the north side? Is the office, does it have multiple stories? How does it relate to the creek? How's access to the people work with that option? Do we end up with one building and 3.5 city blocks of a parking lot? How do the existing residents move through the property to access the existing amenities on the west side of Peak? I'm sure others have many other questions which need thoughtful analysis and public discussion. Our normal procedure for complicated issues is to refer them to committee for thorough analysis and public discussion. Last meeting, we voted on the fireworks issue that went to committee, and we also referred the food truck ordinance to committee. I don't see why this issue should not have the same treatment of full public discussion and public analysis. I would like to respond to the idea that this is simply surplus city property and we should be happy to sell to anyone. This is prime real estate. We would not be receiving an offer for a 100,000 square foot office building if it were not prime real estate. It is prime real estate because of all the successful projects that the city has completed over the last several years. What was once an unsightly canal is now a community amenity, surrounded by hundreds of housing units, new parks, restaurants, and retail. I have attended many ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings along Mill Creek in the last 3 years as a city council member. This is a successful redevelopment project and will continue to be a successful project. I would also like to respond to the idea that this property has been idly sitting for 8 years and we need to do something with it. The staff report states the acquisitions actually happened between 2007 and 2010, 6 years ago. Since that time, not only have the canal and walkways improvements been completed, but over 100 residential units have been built and are occupied. By contrast, the Shops at Riverwalk, a very successful development, original EIR was approved in 2001, 15 years ago. The first restaurants were opened in 2005. At that time, it was estimated to take 3 to 5 years to complete the project. 11 years later, the project is not finished. Does that mean it is not a great project and a great vision? No. What it means is that sometimes things don't go as fast as we like. Again, I would like to restate this is a great public redevelopment project, and I look forward to a thorough analysis of its use and a transparent public discussion of what is best for the community. I therefore move to refer this item to the Planning and Development Committee, and any letters of intent to purchase the property should come to that committee prior to coming to the council so that transparency and public discussion are paramount. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
I guess it's my turn. Thank you, Mayor Hall. This thing's been going on for a little bit, and originally I was, in my mind, in favor of this going to planning and development. But I'd like to make a couple comments why I don't think it's necessary tonight. First of all, I want everyone to know that I am a member of that committee, along with Mr. Weir and Mr. Smith. So it's not like I would not have personal involvement. But I am somewhat concerned in that the council member from Ward 2, where this is located, will not have any say in the committee. Whether that's important or not, I don't know, except that some of my colleagues over the last probably several months have made the comment from time to time that we look at the city of Bakersfield and look at the downtown area, that it's not one council member's ward, it is all our ward. Well, technically, every ward in the city of Bakersfield is all our ward, but I think that the feeling is, at least some of the folks, that that we should have more say-so. If that's a fact, then why would we go to committee? We've got 7 of us up here to talk about it. So that's one of my reasons. I mean, this property, I'm not saying whether I'm in favor of selling that property the way it is today, the 5.2 acres or whatever, in total, for redevelopment, for office, or for commercial purposes other than retail. I agree with Bob that that is, you know, a wonderful dream that we've had, and I don't mean a dream being nasty, but it's something that we've looked at and we've wanted to do. But to call it a prime property, I'm not sure I could use that term. And Bob, I don't say this in a way, I'm not trying to insult anybody, this dais, but you know, we've had an opportunity, or we've tried to sell this property for 7 or 8 years. I think we need to negotiate. Staff, Mr. Tandy, and others, the staff, have been in contact with people from the private sector. Mr. Bynum, who is in the audience tonight, and I think there could be some headway as far as some kind of a, I don't want to say a deal, but some kind of a compromise. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. It may not happen. Mr. Bynum may say, hey, the deal's dead. There's nothing to talk about except that we go on our merry way and we continue to try to market this property. But for those reasons, and I really, really am sold on that idea that this is a council decision. We have been forward on our thinking. I don't think there's, as far as transparency is concerned, there's no backroom deals going on. There's no secrets going on. Mr. Tandy has been upfront with the council, with anyone that wants to know anything about it. There's no secrets. It's a city property. We have a right to do what we choose. I mean, out of the 7 of us up here, there'll be a vote someday to do something with that property, whether it's to sell it, sell part of it, retain all of it, whatever. So I cannot support the motion to send that committee because I don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Councilmember Weir.
Thanks, Mayor. You know, when we were trying to acquire the property for Mesa Marin, there were talks going on, there were negotiations going on, of which I was not part of. I intentionally stayed away from those negotiations. It's not my job as a council member to negotiate sales contracts, and I stayed away from it. When it came time to introduce the idea to council, it went to council committee. Community Services Committee, of which I am not a member. It went through, it came to council, the council voted on it. It's no different than what we're doing tonight. It's no different than Councilmember Smith's motion. It's going to go to committee. It'll be aired in the committee meeting. Public will have a chance to come and speak at a forum different from the council meeting. And ultimately, it's going to pass from committee back to the council, and the 7 people up here are going to have that decision to make. It's a matter of public participation. It's a matter of transparency. It's a matter of the right thing to do. It's a matter of the right process to follow. And so I'm going to support this motion.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I know staff has been actively involved in negotiating several options with this piece of property. You know, I think arguably we have some of the best city staff in the state. And without necessarily punting this particular item to committee, I would like to afford our staff to continue in those negotiations and allow them to do so without necessarily this charged interference. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I really like what Councilmember Parlier just had to say. I think that it's a time is the essence sort of a question. I know that Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Ware have given you examples where the process has been one where it's gone to a committee, but I can give you several where it's a process where it hasn't. It's a question of whether this one in particular is one where we have to be time sensitive and we have to understand that there is no question that there will be public input on this. There's no question that through the paper they have laid out succinctly what this project's all about and some of the things that are going on with it. I agree with Councilmember Parlier and Councilmember Vice Mayor Hansen that it really is up to our staff to work with these people. And then when they're done working with those people, to come back to us and tell us what they have and look to us for that approval. If we render that there's some things that need to be questioned about it, that need to be gone over, then we can send it to a committee. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think we're 7 intelligent people. We understand what the property is all about, what the history of it is, what's being proposed here. And I would actually like to make a motion that since we just don't seem to have a strong consensus one way or the other, it looks like a 3-3 that is going to go. I'm making the assumption for Councilmember Sullivan, and maybe she would like to weigh in also. But I'd like to make a motion that we table this decision until the next council meeting when we'll be at full council and everybody can lay the same arguments out. And the full council, since as Vice Mayor Hansen pointed out, everybody seems to think that the downtown area is kind of that golden jewel that everybody should have some input on. Then I think that having this particular item discussed would be best done with a full council. So I'll make that motion.
Mayor, if you don't mind me intervening, Councilmember Maxwell, I'm not sure if you heard Councilmember Parlier, but I believe that he made a motion to continue to the next date, which would be March 30th. I would urge you to withdraw your motion because as I've indicated to council before, a motion to table is very complicated. It would never come back. So really what you're doing is you're making a duplicative motion, which is a motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to table. I did mean, as Councilmember Parlier was suggesting, to simply delay it till our next meeting.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, thank you. Well, my comment first is that this, you know, I've been on the council for a long time, and I'm very aware of what the ideal, what the tentative plan and vision has been for that piece of property. It is a prime, I consider it a prime piece of property, and will be a major decision it's a, it's a one-time opportunity to continue with the vision that we've had in place that is going to go along with the use of recreation and that type of thing. So it's very important that people, the community is aware of the extreme different options that are possible here. And, going to a committee just gives more input for the newspaper, the just FYI and publicity, and I know how strongly I feel about the decision that is going to be made by this council. And certainly if more input is being asked and felt necessary or important, I'm for that. So, Jenny, I'm a little confused now, and I didn't quite understand what my wingman here is recommending, that we leave this decision until next meeting to perhaps then send it to committee, or would you explain that again, please?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Sullivan, and Councilmember Parlier, jump in if I misstate you, but I understand that you made a motion to continue this matter to the next meeting, which is March 20th.
That wasn't exactly, I guess, my statement, but I concur, and yes, I do introduce that, well, yes, until next council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan, does that answer your question?
Just to leave the decision about how to handle this until the next meeting? Is that what we're saying?
And if I can clarify just a little bit, like I was talking about staff, I think it affords them an opportunity, a little bit more time to hash out some of these negotiations, and that extra time may help facilitate maybe our judgment-making process. Thank you.
Ms. Gennaro, we have one motion that was initially stated. Now we have a second. Do I act on the second one first?
Yes, Mayor, not only is that historically correct, but the motion to continue takes priority.
Everybody understand the motion to continue? If so, please cast your votes.
The motion is tied with Councilmember Weir and Smith and Sullivan voting no, and Councilmember Rivera absent.
The mayor votes no.
Thank you, Mayor.
That then sends us to the first motion from Councilmember Smith, as I have it, which is a motion to send the matter to Planning and Development as well as the LOI.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Councilmembers Hanson and Maxwell voting no, and Councilmember Rivera absent.
Next item, please.
Council and Mayor statements.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't know I was going to be up that quick. I just want to reiterate the Public Works Director, Nick Fiddler, and invite everybody out next Friday. That's going to be March 11th at 11 a.m. for the grand opening of the new Hosking Interchange and Bridge. It's going to be a wonderful event. And I just want to thank city staff, all the work that Public Works has done on this project, and more importantly, the city manager, Alan Tandy, and my predecessor, Russell Johnson, got together and realized that as the city continues to grow south, that this could be a real opportunity for the city to bring in some TRIP monies and complete this project. And we are already progressing that area, and hopefully you're going to bring a lot of jobs to Ward 7 in the city of Bakersfield once we get some development out in that area too. My last item is today I was at a ceremony for the reopening of the Albertsons on Panama Lane, and they opened some other stores today too. But more importantly, I was there representing the mayor today. The mayor couldn't make it, and I had the city certificate of appreciation, and I've been to multiple ribbon cuttings since being elected, but I've represented the mayor so far 4 times. And I got to tell you, Mayor, it's a great opportunity to represent you every single time. For a good part of my life, mayor and hall are synonymous. One goes, it's like chocolate and peanut butter, they kind of go together. And I just want to thank you for your service to this city. I know you still have some time in the game, but I just want to thank you again, and hopefully I have another opportunity to represent you before you leave office. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Parlier, for your comments. I don't know what the reasons were that I couldn't do those other ribbon cuttings, but this is Dr. Seuss week for me, and I was reading to 4 schools for Dr. Seuss week. That's why I couldn't make the Albertsons ribbon cutting. Councilmember Maxwell?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I've got a few referrals. First of all, I got a letter from one of my constituents who goes out to the bridge over the Carrier Canal number 3. On the city side, there is no right-of-way sign. On the county side, there is, and it specifies that you should yield to equestrian and pedestrian and then cyclists. There seems to be some problems out there, and so I would like to have staff look into that and make sure that that sign is put on our side of that bridge. I would also like for Nelson Smith, if you could give us some sort of idea as to the impact that we're going to be feeling because of that 2.2 cent decrease in gas taxes. That's an 18% decrease. My guess, though, is that the state is being benevolent with our money, that quite frankly, they're not going to decrease their portion of that pie, so that while the total fund is going to be decreased by 18%. I think the ramifications for us will probably be much greater than 18%. I think that when you have somebody else in control of your money like that, they can look like the good guy, and unfortunately, it will probably impact us a lot more. So if you could do that, and then also I'd like to send you that copy of that article that I referred to earlier by John Malden. And if I could get your comments, and if you can do some forecasts based on a 4% return for the CalPERS investment fund, that would be nice. I also wanted to make a referral. I know that it's been a while since we've heard anything about the negotiations with our employee groups, so I would like a closed session update on that. And if there is anything that those groups have submitted to us, I'd like the council to be able to look at those. And then the last thing is, I would like to say a big thank you to the police staff. We recently had a community meeting down at the Mark Restaurant in the park area. We had over 100 people participate. Actually, it was probably close to 130, 140. The staff for the police department did a phenomenal job, gave some salient ways that our citizens can inexpensively protect themselves, do the best that they can to make sure that they're not the victim of crimes, because we certainly don't have the police force to put a policeman on every corner of every street. So I know that this was a night that they normally would have been off. They certainly had other things to do, but the impact that they had on the people that attended, I think, was very, very positive. It was a bit of a contentious meeting at times, but everybody was there for the right reason. We're all concerned about crime in our neighborhoods, and if we don't come together and express that to the police and express that to the people that sit up here, then we can't make plans for how we're going to handle the increase in crime that we're going through. So other than that, I hope everybody has a nice night. Thanks.
Well, if there appears to not be any further council statements, we stand adjourned.